Everybody. Welcome to Alive in 25. I am Pastor Deb, and tonight I'm so excited because we have Miss Sonja here with us. And you can see at the bottom of all the little letters after her name. So tell me what all of those mean.
Okay, so recently in February of last year, I acquired my master's in nursing with an emphasis in education. And I also have my bachelor's of science, so that's the BSN. And I'm a registered nurse as well as mom of teens.
I love the mott.
Yes, as of Thursday, it'll be 3 out of 4 of mine are teens.
We were just talking about that today. So 3 teens. She's an experienced mom of teens. So as we talk tonight, hi Roseanne, hi Marion. It's nice having you here. So as we go on tonight and talk a little bit, we want to talk about the effects of mental health on our youth. And that's why I asked you here tonight, because you not only have your own kids, but you also have the kids in the school districts and the kids around you. And with your experience and your education, we're hoping that maybe you could give us a little bit of advice. And so we pulled up some statistics, and this just blew me away. And it said that this was from the Newport Academy. It's about how you know when your teens need help.
Yeah.
So I'll share some of them, but where are you at with where our kids are?
Mental health is a huge need in our area amongst our teens, and it's one of probably the most needed attentions in school, at homes, for us to be aware of what to look for, how to help gain those resources and build on resources so that we can offer help when it's needed.
So have you seen, how long have you been a school nurse?
9 years.
9 years, congratulations, that's awesome. So over that 9 years, you didn't have teenagers then?
No.
So you've kind of not only warped into the mom role of teenagers, but also the school role.
Right.
So are you a school nurse for the K through 12?
Early childhood. So we have an early childhood program, so 3 all the way up to 18.
Okay.
So the entire district.
So and just in your district, I know when you're speaking of that, but I think that's probably pretty general.
Yeah.
So what are you seeing? What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Everybody's different. Each teen is different. It can be, you have those teens that you see walking in the hall and you can recognize some of the signs, and then you have those teens that you learn something about them, or you see something that's concerning and it blows your mind, because each of them are different, and I don't really feel like there's a textbook. It's the kids that you think have it all together, and it's the kids that don't appear that they have everything together. So it really crosses the whole board as far as affecting their youth, and the way that they demonstrate it, and the way they reach out and also kind of cry for help. So
right. So some of the statistics that I found, and I thought that this was just interesting, 87% of the Gen Z youth, which is our 20s and under, they struggle with mental health on a regular basis.
Yeah. Not
just sometimes, on a regular basis, 87%. And, we always talk about, adults. Yeah. And, we're depressed, we have anxiety, we have whatever. But we are also seeing little kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is not, when we have some of the kids that are kind of dubbed as the naughty kids, and really they're just screaming for help.
Right.
Am I reading that right?
Absolutely. A lot of our, especially younger kids, and all the way across the board, they're on, depending upon their home life and that, some of them are on survival, where they're not worried about the pencils or the pens that they don't have for school, but they're just worried about, making it through another day. Where's their next meal coming from? Who's going to be home with them at night? Is anybody going to be home? So there's all sorts of stressors and worries that they have that, we see it in a very superficial layer. Well, they have dirty clothes or they don't have this, but they're not even worried about that. They're worried about how am I going to get through today? And that puts a lot of stressors on them. And we're seeing it a lot younger, all the way across the board. And it's a huge need. Mental health is.
Right. And so Tina, thank you for sharing that. She said laughing a lot is a good cover up for depression.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all of the comedians that we've known. Robin Williams comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
So many that is the mask. And I, being a mom of teens, I have one of my kiddos that he's always making people laugh. He's always got to be the joke and that. But then I really worry about him because I think, he feels things deeply, and he's not willing to share that openly. Right. He covers it up.
Right. And I think that is it. So hello, Rhonda, and hello, everybody. Like I said, in the comments, we are talking about the effects of mental health on our youth tonight. And I just, like I said, it just rips my heart out, but hearing the teachers who are struggling, and because I think the teachers are struggling because they don't even, I think the mental health issues in the children, because it affects the behaviors, it affects so many things. Yes. It affects their academics. And maybe either they'll sleep.
Yeah.
And it could be foundation at home. Because, what are mom and dad doing? Or do they have a solid foundation at home? Are they going home to safety? Right. Or are they going home to a place that just feels so unsafe, and maybe school is their safety zone? Exactly. It could be the place that they eat. It could be the place that they feel peace. Yep.
And even have kids that, they lose sleep because they're so focused on their environment at night, where they almost they're hyper vigilant about watching things. And so then they come to school the next day without a lot of sleep because they were up all night wondering what the noises were, what things were in their food, or they didn't have a bed to sleep on, or things coming through the walls, or, things like that. And so you think about kind of the terror that creates sometimes. And I think too, with especially teenagers, we see, when they withdraw and they go into the rooms and they sleep a lot, or, maybe they have changes in their eating habits. We see that as a normal phase that they're going through. And that's why I think it's so important to really be tuned in to noticing those changes when they prolonged. And also giving yourself some grace in that there's no perfect parent. Right. There is no perfect parent. I tell my kids all the time, guess what? I'm learning right along with you. And this is my first time doing this too. So
no textbook's going to teach you.
No textbook.
I mean, our kids, we have 6 kids, and they're so different.
They are.
I mean, it's their personalities, their, everything.
Yes.
It's just so the way they learn, everything is different.
What works with one kid talking to them doesn't work with their sibling, and sitting them down, because they process things differently. Even what they're willing to share with you is completely different in their communication. So just finding that genuine, true connection with them and opening up those communication, I think is a huge thing.
Yeah, I do too. So as we're going through here, Roseanne said she sees kids taking their brothers and sisters and not getting their homework done. So they're taking care of their siblings. So mom and dad are going to work, but they are working when they get home. And so their homework's not getting done. And that's probably one of the things too. So their grades are sliding, but it's necessary for mom and dad to do that in order to make ends meet. So there's a lot of different things. And then Tina said some students are just trying to survive.
Yes, survival mode.
Holding their head above water, and that's all they can do.
Absolutely.
Are we seeing an increase in that, or is it pretty steady about where it's been? Or you think?
I feel like it's a bit on the rise. I think families in general sometimes are struggling. We don't have those resources, and maybe mom and dad have their own mental health issues.
Right.
And so what feels normal to them, that's what they see as normal. And so they don't realize that that's inadequate coping, or like you said, they have an enormous amount of responsibility at home where they're just focused on that. The economy right now, parents
It's not going to get
having
better
to work,
right now.
So a lot of them, they need to be out working because that's how they provide for their family, which puts a lot of extra stress on the kids.
Right. And Roseanne also says, it's kids coming to school telling them that they have no food at home.
Mm-hmm. Food insecurity is a huge.
So, and what I've seen too is a lot of we have coach surfers, families that are homeless, that are trying to the kids are sleeping in their cars, they're sleeping from friend to friend, and they don't know where they're going to be
right
after they're picked up from school. So school seems to be their solid.
Yeah. And a bit of a distraction, but at the same time, why am I going to worry about doing homework when I don't even know where I'm going to sleep tonight?
Right. So, and then Rhonda says, do you think society or peers have affected also on mental health?
Oh, absolutely.
That's big.
Electronic devices. There's no break, for those kids that do have the cell phones, and that, I remember when I was growing up, you go home and you, if you had a rough day, you could stop it at the door the moment that you walked in the door, and now there's no off switch. There's a constant connection with each other, which can be a good thing,
right.
Can be a very good thing, but at the same time, some of those influences that are around us, you don't get a break from that either. I'm a believer in forced digital detoxing. I do notice a difference in my kids when they're not happy about it, but I do notice a difference when they have that just stopped and they can just let loose, and they seem lighter, they seem happier, and kind of sad to me.
And some kids have to take on the responsibility that we would consider parental responsibility at a very, very young age. They are babysitting their siblings. They're running errands. They're doing the cooking. They're doing the cleaning. They're doing the things because either mom and dad can't or they're at work.
Right.
And like you said, it could be mental health on the parents' side as well, of depression, anxiety. There's so many things going on, and the world is just so loud.
Well, in trying to find somebody that connects, that understands that amongst your peer base is difficult too. Somebody else doesn't have that level of responsibility that you have. It's difficult to find somebody that you really feel can understand that and empathize, and that you can talk to and that you feel safe with. Because that can really vary amongst our youth too. In trying to really relate to each other.
Right. Well, and I think that's huge. And so, and Brenda says, school itself, there's a lot of bullying. Look at the suicide rate for that. Also look at the school shootings and they come back because of bullying. Mm-hmm. So, mental health is part of that. And actually, I just had this conversation with somebody the other day because, this morning, actually on our morning devotion, because it was like, people are trying, and people who have anxiety want other people who are miserable wants to have other people miserable with them. They want to, they're really trying to bring it in. So how do we talk to our teens about that? Because what the thing is that we are products of our environment.
Yes.
We are products of the people we hang around with.
Yes.
And sometimes, they're hanging around with the kids because they're the cool kids or because they're the only kids that'll talk to them. Maybe it's because of the way they dress or the way that they even smell at times, because of there's a lot.
There is. And, you have even those kids that maybe are lonely at home. And so all these lonely kids get together and they kind of become a family unit. of sorts. The problem with that sometimes is that it's not healthy coping, and it's not healthy communication or healthy thinking or positivity. And sometimes that negativity can breed off of itself. So I think that's something
it kind of throws fuel on the fire for the
Yes.
kids that aren't, that makes sense. That makes sense. And so Roseanne said that homeless families are happening more than we know.
Absolutely.
A lot of the families you would not ever guess,
Mhm.
and they are making sure their kids are getting washed up at the gas station in the bathroom to come to school with clean clothes.
Yeah.
They are making sure, or maybe reach out to the school and say, hey,
Mhm.
could you make sure they have a shower?
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
and so I think that that's a lot of, not necessarily maybe mental health, but it is the economy, and this is another trend, but that does affect our mental health.
Affects it, yes.
Because there's not any place to go,
right?
And it's like, so, and then Wessa has had seizures, but she said, do you have to deal with kids having seizures at school? She was wondering.
Oh yeah. I have a pretty wide range of kids with medical issues, ranging from diabetes to seizures to congenital diseases, mental health. Oh my goodness, so many things on top of the broken bones and the things that the magic ice can fix.
Right.
So really, I mean, I've taken care of students that have had tube feedings. I've had, I do medication administration at school as well. So supporting the students in that way, as well as the ones that come in with the stomach aches and the headaches, which can also be a sign of depression, anxiety, especially with the younger kids. They don't understand why their stomach hurts.
Right.
And they don't always know to connect. Oh, well, I have a test today, for instance. My stomach hurts. And yeah, so trying to figure that out and getting to know the kids where you kind of know their tendencies, and maybe those that didn't sleep that night before because for one reason or another,
Right.
To the ones who maybe have food insecurity and they just need to eat something.
Right. Well, and that's another thing is that I know that the lack of nutrition causes us, the lack of nutrition, the lack of sleep.
Yeah.
These kids got a whole lot of combinations of things coming at them all at once. And as adults, we have a hard time identifying that. I cannot imagine that they think that this is my life,
Right.
This is normal for me, when we can look at it and say, no, this is not normal.
Right.
But then if it is their normal, then how do you deal with that? When you know it's not feeling right, but their normal is so different than yours.
I've come into contact with that a couple of times, and even with my own kids who will come home and say, so-and-so was mean to me, so-and-so said this to me. And what I tried to help them to understand is what happens in our house is our normal. And if we were to go to so-and-so's house, being in their home is something that would not feel normal to us, just like them being in our home would not feel normal, good, bad, or otherwise, right? So,
but just because it's not our normal doesn't mean that it's not okay.
Right. And just, I think, helping them to identify that they have choices. I've had lots of students that, really feel like this is all there is for me. No, you have the power. You have the power to be very intentional with your decisions and your choices. You have that power to break that cycle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy, and it does not happen overnight, and it's a continual process of learning, but you have that power. If you just need to be able to identify what isn't healthy and what isn't benefiting your mental, physical, spiritual, emotional health.
That's huge. So Rhonda wants to know, she says, what about mental health being inherited?
Yeah,
is it linked to genetics?
There are some, when we assess, we do assess for mental health issues. And I do think that it can be genetics. I also think it goes back to that when you lived a certain way and you've been raised a certain way, that's your experience.
Mhm.
And so the recognition that maybe there are issues isn't always there. So how am I going to know that I've got problems with depression if this is what I've lived?
Right, and this is the normal.
Mhm.
You know,
I mean, I hate to keep going back to like this is the normal, but that's really, I mean,
It
it's so
is.
hard to see when you've seen the color green your entire life, having somebody say, well, that's actually the color pink to you.
I remember when we were adopting and we were going through the process, and we were so frustrated because as we were having these parent meetings, and it sounded so silly, but the one social worker came up and said, "Hey, wait a minute. What you got to understand is they do not think the same way you think."
Right.
And like I said, I always go back to that stupid gold and white dress and the black and blue. Our brains do not function the same, and so there's no right or wrong.
No.
It's just that it is different.
It's different and it's a different approach.
Right.
It's similar to, genetics being related to diabetes or alcoholism or, any number of things that can be passed along. It's that recognition and that addressing it,
Mm-hmm.
I think, in a loving, direct manner.
Right.
Sorry.
No, you're right. So, Roseanne, now this is interesting. We see anger when their computers aren't working fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Instant gratification.
I was going to say,
immediate gratification. I remember when the internet first came out and you had to wait for the whole dial-up thing. It's really though. Or I tell my kids, did you know, like, you didn't know who was calling you. You had to answer the phone without even knowing.
It wasn't an ID.
Yeah. Like dad was caller ID,
Yeah, right.
I really think this is the world they live in. It's an immediate gratification. And that might be a little bit into our mental health too, where, we're feeling a certain way and we just can't turn it off. It's not an immediate switching tracks as far as how we're feeling and our method of thinking. So I think we can get caught up in that a little bit. And when things aren't happening, it creates frustration.
But I remember, and like you said, going back and kind of aging myself, but I remember when my mom and dad bought this set of the encyclopedias, and we thought we had the world in our hands.
Yes.
We really did. We thought this huge box of encyclopedias. But man, we could go look it up, and we would know before they knew at school.
Yeah.
And now it's Siri everything all the time. I mean, it's instant, and they know everything.
They do. I've had little toddlers who probably know how to use my phone better than I do. So
right.
And I think it's funny because I even find myself, again, aging myself, but we had to wait for things, but how quickly I become frustrated if I have to wait for something,
right?
Or something's not working or the computer's not working. So it's amazing to me how quickly we acclimate to everything being right there at our fingertips.
Right. And so and so we're going to be getting to comments, and so we're coming up on 30 minutes, and so at 30 minutes we are going to take just a couple minute break. But anyway, on the we'll stay live, but we're going to take a couple minute break. But Kathy says there's a lot of bullying in the school. And I mean, this is something that I have heard from a lot of different parents in a lot of different ways. But then I've also talked to some of the administrators in the school. And so I think too, are we defining bullying the same way? Once again, is, it's different, I think, because I think each parent defines bullying different, each household. And so the thing is that is there bullying in school? Absolutely. And without a doubt. But I also think that it would be, to me, it just seems like it would be really helpful do you guys do a course on bullying, or do you do some kind of with the younger kids, or do you guys, is there something the schools do for that?
Absolutely. Our guidance counselors are in our classrooms from a very young age and addressing, really respecting the individual person, and how different people are. And I really feel like there's a huge presence that is trying to address that. What's sensitive to me is not sensitive to somebody else. And I also think because everybody's experience isn't the same, it's really hard, again, to identify with somebody who lives a very different lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I wake up and I have clean clothes and a full belly and a mom and a dad that are there to bring me everything that I would need, and it's really hard for me to relate to another classmate or peer who maybe does not have that same experience.
Mm-hmm.
And also, reflectively, that student, there's those feelings of almost envy, I wish that were my experience. And so it's just, we all have such different experience. And I think the important thing is to really just stop and relate to each other
And just be kind.
and to be kind.
If we could do that and just be kind to one another. So and so I think we're going to just take a minute here, and we're going to come back to some of your questions. And so I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you all for coming on and jumping on tonight. Share the video, because we're going to continue to chat as we go. But if you could share the live feed, and because we want to try to reach as many people as we can. The reason that we do a Live in 25 and the On the Porch Ministries, first of all, On the Porch Ministries, our goal is to help people have a closer walk with God, have a better life, and feel better about themselves. And so this Alive in 25, what we found is that there's a lot of people with mental health issues who you would never know have mental health issues,
Right.
but they just need to be heard.
Right.
And seen. And that is the one thing, is that some people just need to say, you matter.
Yeah.
I see you.
12 minutes. 12 minutes, I read, it takes somebody to connect with somebody and not feel so lonely. So if you have 12 minutes for somebody to be a friend and to be a genuine ear to listen, who doesn't have 12 minutes in a day?
Right.